Hey, friends! I'm Jesse Fisco.
And I'm Ambry Fisco.
As founders of several successful businesses, we've experienced absolute joy and satisfaction working together to build our empire.
Our journey started off as a small business idea and has launched into a multi-million-dollar portfolio. It would have never been possible had Jesse and I not understood the key principles of making it all work together. But it has not been easy.
We found ourselves in the trenches trying to balance real life with business life while maintaining our strong commitment to creating an amazing marriage.
And we've emerged in a beautiful way together. This podcast was created to help you do what we've done, build an amazing marriage together while maintaining balance between life and business.
So here we are. You're listening to the Matrimonial Merger, a couple's guide to balancing life and business.
Let's get started.
Welcome to the Matrimonial Merger podcast. Today we're going to be talking about your environment. And as you start to make changes for your New Year's resolutions and goals, you may start to experience your environment shifting a little bit and getting some feedback or some interesting emotions that may arise. So we're going to talk about that and jump right in. And we just want to say thank you so much for listening to our podcast. We greatly appreciate it. Last week's episode, we were just absolutely got a ton of positive feedback from people. And it was because a listener reached out and asked us a specific question. And that's what we're trying to make this podcast all about, is designed for you as the listener. So we encourage you to continue. If we do strike an emotional chord, share this with your friends. Or, you know, if you're dealing with something and you have a question and want some input, I mean, it's free at this point. Just send us a, send us a DM and we'd love to help. But anyways, how are you doing today?
I'm good.
Good.
I can't believe it's like January 2nd already. We're into January. It's happening.
It's happening.
It's here.
It's crazy. And this month is nuts. We're going out to a massive mastermind group sometime this month. And then also there will be a time where we're also going to a marketing thing out of state. And that's going to be very awesome. I'm so excited for just for what's going to happen this year.
It's going to be a good one.
Like, very rarely, I'll say this, like going into 2022, like we wrote down our goals and like, yay, everything's great. Like, this is what we're going to do. But like, this is the first time in my life that I've walked in actually knowing what the outcome is going to be of the goals we set.
Yeah. More clarity.
Oh, it's so awesome.
It's awesome. I love it.
Anyways, well, today I want to talk about environment, and this really, really hits home. I had an opportunity to sit down with a few members of family, extended family, and just have some amazing discussions over the last 2 weeks. So they all know that we're involved in coaching. And so there was a lot of conversations about emotional states. There was conversations about pasts, and one conversation, I mean, it went for like 2.5 hours, just in depth.
At least, yeah.
Yeah. And so we're going to talk about that today and really hone in because it's fresh on the mind. But
and this is good timing because, like you mentioned in your intro, like the new year's here. Likely you've set some goals or intentions for the year, things you want to focus on, things that you're going to accomplish, and maybe some adjustments or changes in your environment, your routine, whatever that is.
Right.
And if you've done that before, you may have noticed that as you make those changes and as you are shifting your focus in certain areas or striving to be a more excellent version of yourself, sometimes that makes other people feel a certain way.
Right.
Could be an uncomfortable way.
Very much so.
Right. And so, yeah.
I'm going to open up with a story. And when we first started getting really into this, I remember telling you one day, I was like, Ambry, I'm going to meditate. We had gone to this seminar. We did a meditation, and I was like way curious, like very curious. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go meditate.
Like, this is like next level meditation.
Right. I was like,
this is not just like sitting quiet. Like, this is like deep, intense meditation.
Deep, intense, yeah. And it's so much fun. But I remember going, hey, Ambry, I'm going to go meditate. And
for like an hour.
Yeah. It was so funny because like I came back through the meditation and there was a lot of feedback and questions, and it would have been easy to get triggered emotionally.
Okay, well, first of all, I'm like so you're just going to like take a nap for an hour?
Right, exactly. There was kind of like this, like, well,
especially
what are you
because
doing?
like when I would try to meditate, I literally would fall asleep. Like I'm still practicing like the art of meditating in a way that like, sure, you might not feel like you're 100% there consciously, but subconsciously you are.
Right.
Anyways, but like I'm over here like, if I go meditate for an hour, like I'm asleep.
Right. And there was times too, like where like in the beginning,
that's not a bad thing.
But you're right. There was times in the beginning though where like I would fall asleep, right?
Yeah.
And then I'd wake up and it was kind of like this weird, like getting used to it. It was taking practice, right?
And if I'm having like a crazy day and you're just like, peace out, I'm going to go meditate for an hour. I'm like, really? Okay.
Really?
You enjoy that.
But I remember the first time that happened and it was, during work and I was just like, I was struggling and I was just like, you know what? I'm going to go up and meditate. And I remember telling you that and the feedback like that, for example, and what we mean by
like,
feedback.
what does this mean? Like,
what we mean by feedback is just kind of the questions and curiosity. Yeah. But a lot of times we find that the feedback can be assumptive and we can assume that we know what the other person's thinking or assume that they're assuming the worst in us for doing something we want. Mm-hmm. And, because oftentimes people feel guilty for doing something for themselves, right? And it's because they love the other person they're serving. And so I remember this and I got quite a bit of feedback and then the kids were kind of like, what the heck's dad doing? Like it was just this interesting dynamic. And for a moment I had the thought of like, man, I can't do this for myself. And there was a little bit of frustration, to be honest. And I remember that, but then I also remember the fact that like, I'm changing. I'm doing something that is outside of the normal around my family. And I had to take a step back and realize that although this is what I want, it's okay to go do what I want. But Ambry's going to have some feelings about it and some curiosity. And she's going to try to...
Well, first of all, it's like, where's Jesse? Like, who took my husband and who is this?
Right.
Like,
it's new, right?
Like, you're going to go meditate? Like, what?
Who's this Sherpa?
I mean, on one hand, I'm like, that's way cool. Because, like, I love that kind of thing. Like, I love, bettering the, like, mental and physical health and anything that supports that I'm, I'm a fan of. And I'm like, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. And so, like, on one hand, I'm like, oh, cool, Jesse. Like you're doing something really healthy for yourself. And on the other hand, I'm like, what the freak are you doing? Like, what is this? Like, naturally too, it's new, it's different. It's, whatever.
And if it's something that you want to do, right?
Yeah.
Like, then there might be jealousy, not saying
Jesse,
that you
must be nice that you can just go step away from the kids and meditate for an hour.
Was that how you really thought, Ambry?
No.
But, if there's, some frustration or, it's something you want to do too. I mean, I remember the first time, like going on a lunch appointment, like when we were entrepreneur and I went on lunch and you were like, oh, it must be nice. Like go on a lunch. And I took that as like feedback of
like next time you're taking a child with you.
Yeah. And I took that as feedback of like, oh my gosh, Ambry hates me. Right. Like, and it was far from that, but you have to understand that everyone in your family or in your work, they are all molding around what they feel is normal. Us as human beings, we try to find things that we process really quickly and make it unconscious in our minds so that it's easy for us, right? Mm-hmm. That's how our brain is used. And so we look for patterns, look for things to become subconscious where it's just on autopilot.
Or like familiar, or it's something that like you already have data for. So like your mind just goes there. Like, I mean, it's as simple as like a program of like a lemon is sour. Mm-hmm. What if in someone else's mind a lemon was sweet?
Right.
You'd be like, no, lemon's sour. Like you would have a really hard time like even trying to understand like that lemon is actually sweet to that person. Mm-hmm. Even though like if someone grew up knowing or being taught that the taste of a lemon was actually the sensation of sweet, not sour. Mm-hmm. I mean, think about that for a second. It's like, that kind of thing happens all the time in our relationships and our communication because we simply have different programs and different interpretations of a situation or, even an emotion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, what happens is it just throws the other person in a little bit of a loop, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, wait, hold up. I remember with certain ecclesiastical asks from our church that threw me in a loop, and it threw me in a headspin because like all of a sudden you're gone and you're busy and you're busy again and again. And it was so foreign to me that there was a lot of feedback. And I think what made it, looking back at it, like it caused a lot of like frustration, I think, in both you and I. And the reason why it caused so much frustration was because it was inconsistent. Like there would be times where it changes, or there'd be times where, it was just, it required a lot of flexibility, right? And understanding. And I think towards the end of like before you got released in that particular like calling or responsibility, I think that what we found was a little bit better groove and understanding, but there was a lot of feedback about that. And that's what I really want to hit home on this episode is you are going to want to do something for yourself. Mm-hmm. And if you're a packer, and what I mean by a packer is you pack in all of your feelings, all of your emotions, you bottle it up, right? And then one day you just run upstairs or downstairs and you go, enough's enough, I'm leaving, I'm taking off, goodbye. Mm-hmm. Right? Because you just have to go do something for you. You've served, your glass is empty, and you just take off. If you're this type of individual, this is going to ultimately result in feedback, and you need to be prepared for it. Because if you pack all this emotion in and then you come home to feedback, it may be very easy for you to start feeling like, oh, well, I can't do anything for myself because everyone else is giving me all this emotional like a feedback and all this emotional stress that all I want to do is take time for myself. And so you have to be aware of that. Anytime you start to change the schedule or change the outcome, you have to be prepared for some of the feelings and some of the emotions shared by other people around you, because they are all trying to unconsciously adapt to the family schedule or to the version of you. Like if you're at work and all of a sudden you just do something out of the blue random, you may make some people like frustrated, or you may find that if you're, emotionally charged and do something out of character, you may be quick to take offense if someone does that directed towards you, but it actually might just be feedback because of something different, right? And they're trying to adjust to certain things. Therefore, they are acting a little bit different and it's rubbing off on you. Feedback is always followed when you're doing something, when you have to be more conscientious of what it is you've typically had to be unconscious about.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
That's
so it's
powerful.
Like if I told you, well, if you're walking and I go, hey, Ambry, use your left foot first instead of your right. And now all of a sudden it's like at the front of your mind.
Now I'm like, wait, which foot do I usually use?
And now all of a sudden you're like going back and reanalyzing.
I'm thinking about something that I usually just like don't
naturally
think about.
do.
I just do it. It just,
Exactly. And that's why, when a lot of people go to throw a baseball with their left hand, if they're right-handed, like it looks wonky. There's no form, there's no repetition. And that is the body giving you feedback. So there is feedback associated with everything when you start to bring what is unconscious to the conscious forward part of your mind, where you're actually thinking about it. And that's what's fun.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah, and that's where real change starts to happen too, is because a lot of us have emotional programs installed that we've been living for an entire lifetime.
You may not even like them. You hate it, or it's not serving you in some way, but just in your mind, that's who you are, or that's, just
if who you are
something you have to deal with.
Is the individual that always eats at the party because it's a social eating experience, like a social eating opportunity or experience, if that's who you are, then you start to bring that to the forefront of your mind. And then all of a sudden people are like, oh, you got to try this. I know you love this kind of stuff. Yeah. And then you're like, I actually want to diet. And then they go, what happened to the real Jesse? Or what happened to the real version of you?
Or really just even taking that example, like if you are one that like you call yourself a social eater or whatever, like you go to a party and you just like unconsciously or snack on everything around. Like it's not even like, oh, I want that over there, I'm going to go eat that. It's just like, it's there. You're just participating. It's just part of the experience.
Right.
I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but if all of a sudden you decide intentionally, I want to change that or I want to challenge that, the next party you go to and there's, just a like charcuterie board of snacks lying around, like you're going to go and you're going to start, you might go back to like that habit of just grabbing everything in front of you and eating. And all of a sudden, because you've made yourself consciously aware, you're like, oh, wait. And you have to think about it. And it becomes, it feels uncomfortable. You're like, oh, okay. I'm actually having to like focus on this thing that I just usually just did. I didn't have to think about it.
Exactly.
But then you learn like potentially very quickly that you're in control and that you have, you can create change in your mind, in your emotions, in your environment. And I think like when faced with feedback from someone in our environment, someone we love, that's a big, greatly useful tool we can have is being accountable and in control over our own emotions.
Yep.
And not being in control of our own emotions and I'm trying to figure out how to say this without using a don't, right? Because we want to talk about what we want to do, not what we don't want to do. But I mean, I do not want to allow someone else's, what someone else is doing to affect my emotional state and my, well-being, right? Like I can do that.
Yep.
So instead, what is it?
Yeah.
You are in control of your emotions. You are separate. The way you feel and the way you respond is separate from the way another person living in a different model of the world is reacting or responding to something.
I think of the text message that I recently sent to you. We had over the holidays, like most people, we've had lots of family in our home. Mm-hmm. And I remember like sending a text message to you saying, hey, I know that this is an environment shift. I know that you're feeling a certain way and that this is, this is hard. But keep in mind, like I am on the same mission, on the same flight path as you. It's just I'm adapting too. And so your environment's a little bit different. My environment's a little different. But interesting about that text is like we both recognized it. And so when we finally did come together, because you went to store and I was here.
Yeah.
And what was interesting about that is when we both saw each other, we just were like, yeah, we know. Like we both accepted the fact that it was an environment shift, that it was outside of the unconscious activity. Now it was at the forefront of our mind of like, what are we doing? And what was so beautiful about that is we both recognized it. So instead of you getting upset at me for an environment that was uncontrollable in some areas, right? Because this was new. And instead of me getting upset at you, we're able to come together, understand, recognize that this is just the feedback that's surrounding us and that this will pass. Yeah. And it was beautiful.
And I think what is really also really cool about that is like, I mean, I think you and I can both agree in the past, there were situations with our families where it almost felt like, if we were at your families, it was like your responsibility to like, to make everything flow, make sure I was happy, make sure, whatever, insert whatever you want here. Like it was and if we were at my families or my family was involved, everything was kind of on my shoulders to, kind of be in charge, make sure. And maybe that works for some people, but I know for us, like it didn't feel like us. Yeah. And it didn't feel enjoyable. Like, it's like, this feels stressful. This feels like,
right.
It just felt,
we placed the blame on one another and was like, okay,
and then it's like, well, are we even doing something we both want to do? How can we create this intimate experience that we both actually want? Like that we're not just like, dragging one or the other along, or that the other person is just kind of like, oh, well, this and this happened. That's kind of your fault because we're with your family.
Right.
That may sound extreme, but I think that those are real feelings, right?
Absolutely.
And so, like, I mean, this year, like, the personal growth we have experienced has been incredible. Awesome. And it makes me really excited for, like, what the next year is. Yeah. Because a year's not that long. Like, it's a very small amount of time in this beautiful life that we are, creating. And so, but yeah, like this year, I think like the experiences we've been able to create together with family around holidays, around, different, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Milestone things, like all of these things that we've done. It's like, it's that understanding and that mutual, like, respect and work towards like an experience that we both know we want. Because we've identified it and we've created it and we've communicated about it. Like, hey, I need this, you need that. How can we make this work? Also, do we need to drive a separate car? Do we need to like leave at a certain time? Like what, and creating and not just like throwing our hands up and going with the flow and then being frustrated about it. And I know the particular text that you brought up earlier, like I was feeling frustrated in that situation. And I don't think that that's bad. Like I think that's a normal emotion that we're going to experience, but what are you going to do next? Right. And so that's what we're always on a journey of changing and creating. And so in the past, I 100% could say that in that situation that you brought up, like I would have been like
emotionally charged,
very emotionally charged, upset, probably like giving you the cold shoulder or whatever, just like not really understanding how to process those emotions. So I just would have been upset and frustrated. And, that would translate over into our day, our family, all the things. Right. Whereas instead it's like, okay, like
this is just feedback.
There are things happening in this situation that I don't necessarily like I can't tell other people, or I could, but I don't want to tell other people exactly what to do or how to live their life. So am I just going to be frustrated about their choices and what they're doing? Or am I going to go like, okay, I'm just going to do what I need to do. I'm going to like move on, whatever. And
which, by the way, that was really impressive when that happened. Like, go you. Like,
thanks.
You take
That's a big change for me.
Take a moment to celebrate the win because you're right. Like that is,
and you do need to do that. Like
you do.
Sometimes when you're making change and progress, like it's easy to miss out on realizing those small things that maybe you would have handled very differently in the past. So take a moment to like reward yourself and be happy about that. But anyways, I know like in that particular situation and I mean, I was frustrated. I think in the past I would have just been like, mad at everyone, like, and just not happy. And, this time I chose something different. And at first, like, it was like, I did walk away and I needed a minute to just think about it. Like, it's not like in this particular situation, it was just like a boom, immediate. I mean, it took me 5-10 minutes to really like, choose a different outcome. Like, and to go like, okay, I ultimately am in control of how this works for me, of how this pans out for me. Like, and in doing so, like our children have a better experience. Hopefully you have a better experience. Like it's just better overall. And I remember like when we actually had a chance to talk, like you said, it was like, hey, like instead of me being like, you did this, you did that, like I was in the dark, blah, blah, blah. It was like, I understand that this is a unique situation for you too in different ways. We're both like, doing our best and trying to create a positive, wonderful outcome. And we did. It was great.
I think this weekend more than anything has given us a lot of things to consider because I think of like the flat tire situation too.
Oh yeah,
right. Like there's been
I've had a great week.
There's been a ton of snowfall here in Utah, and ultimately, it was just a miscalculation. It was
I totally didn't see a curb, and I just blew right into it and blew a tire.
Covered a curb and blew a tire, which
on the first day of the year.
On the first day of the year. Right, which ultimately led to the tire needing to be changed. Yeah, right, and was
Jesse
cold.
Is sitting out in a blizzard. Changing a tire.
Our son had to adapt because we had an appointment that like landed right in between his nap. Yeah, and so our son was adapting to change, and then like it was just interesting because it was just compounding, right? Like the feedback was unreal because then we finally sit down at this appointment and what we thought was going to be more space ended up being very limited, and we were very scrunched. And then there was
all the things.
There was another child next to us that was picking a fight with Trey, and there was just a lot of feedback like in this moment. And I remember like I looked over and I was just like, I'm pissed. Like I'm like I cannot be here. Like get me out of here.
Okay,
and
but
what was so funny is like my dad, who was there with us, he was just kind of like watching because he wanted to see how things panned out because it was just interesting to see like we're out there changing the tire and, come in freezing cold, feeling uncomfortable, feeling very squished in between a bunch of people. And then our kid and this other kid are fighting and like our kids are crying because they're tired and they want snacks. And we're just sitting there and the whole situation ultimately ended up very good because we got in the car and it was like, all right, this was all like, yes, there are things that we could have taken more awareness of or things that we could have done differently. But for what it was worth, we handled it and we moved on.
Not living in the past, moving forward, creating the now and the,
exactly.
a minute from now.
My dad, who currently is having his own issues like with relationships and other things like that. Life decisions. Sat there and just kind of like observed the whole thing and was like, how do you guys do it? Like, I think one of the things he said is like, that's like a perfect marriage.
But like a year ago, that would have been an absolute crap show. It would have been like, you would have been mad. I would have been like,
I can tell you exactly how I was feeling. Like I was just sitting there trying to like,
emotion that arises didn't change.
No,
we did.
Right. But the thing is that emotion somewhere is subconsciously installed in the back of your mind as a reaction to a certain thing, to a certain way or feeling. Yeah. And that's where, instead of allowing that to just take over our body, here it is. I'm in a crappy situation. I'm out in the snow. I'm going to start blaming everyone. And now you can choose to be the victim
and let your entire day, week, month, or whatever be ruined.
It would be easy to do that because it's natural. It just happens. Yeah. That's just your reaction that you've allowed to evolve over time. But no, it's at the forefront of the mind. And I'm sitting there, all right, take a deep breath. What
would the most excellent version of myself do in this situation?
Who am I trying to become? And because I'm so specific on who I'm trying to become, and you are too, like specific to the point where that like I'm listening to myself, explain to myself who I'm trying to become at night when I go to bed. I'm becoming so aware that like
you have no choice but to like
I'm looking at every option going, I'm not going to yell. I'm not going to freak out.
Yeah.
Sure, maybe I dropped a swear word outside, as I'm out there freezing. But I was able to get over it and the day wasn't ruined. Yeah. And that's where we're trying to hit home with you guys.
It's incredible.
Is that there will be feedback. Yeah. There always will be feedback. But what you choose to do, if you decide you want to become a better person, you have to take that subconscious reaction, bring it to the front of your mind and ask yourself, why am I experiencing this? What have I decided that allows me to respond this way? And you have to be aware. And the more aware you are, the less stress you feel, the less stress you put on your body.
Oh my gosh, 100%.
The less dis-ease.
Honestly, like, I don't know if you can say that loud enough because like you create that stress. You literally create it. Like I, more than anything, have learned that this year. Like, the amount of stress that you and I would have experienced yesterday, a year ago.
Yes.
I mean, it's not even like comparable. Versus yesterday, we're like, I mean, it was not ideal. Like, it wasn't like fun, but man, we like sure made it look like blowing a tire was, no big deal and was actually a fun thing.
Right.
And I think like, you have to choose that and see the reward of it. And I mean, even today, a day later, I have to go and like, deal with trying to like figure out the best option for replacing the tire because this car is literally a month old. So like, I'd rather not replace all 4 tires. And I'm like, I want to just be mad at myself. Right. But then I have to stop and go, okay, what does that do? Like, how is that going to help me here? It's not going to help me be resourceful and find a solution. Like,
right.
And what am I not considering?
Yeah.
What am I not considering? Like, I have a car that is incredible, that is fine, sure, I have to get a new tire, but like whoop-de-doo, right? Like that's
Right.
really not a big deal. My family is safe. Like there's so many things that if I am just taking the unresourceful state of being frustrated and ungrateful and mad, like I'm not seeing all these things that are actually like incredible and huge blessings. And you know, I'm choosing to miss out on those things.
And
so
take a step back to all the hard work you would have done, that you did yesterday to like overcome that. Had you now today, as you're trying to clean up the remainder of the damage for the situation, had you gone back into an emotional state of frustration, all that hard work yesterday would have been in vain. I think we're watching this show. It's mind-boggling. We're like the first episode in, and one of the things they said is 90 or 80%, 60% of people.
No. Oh, sorry. I didn't know what you were saying.
No, it's
I thought you were going somewhere else with that.
I think it's 80% of people have the same thoughts and feelings as they did yesterday. Right?
I missed that.
I missed that part. Blew my mind because you're literally thinking of the same thoughts and feelings 80% of the time. So like out of a 10-hour day,
familiarity.
8 hours of your day is the same thing that happened yesterday. So how could you live in the future or live in the present state if you're always in the past?
It's true. And that
blows
I think
my mind.
Is where people live in fear, is when you're only living based on like past things and
the past experiences and how you could change that and how you should fix that, instead of just taking that feedback and saying, like, I'm going to live in the present moment here. Sure, I'm getting a tire, but you know what I'm not going to allow myself to do? Feel a bunch of anger on something that happened yesterday that we've moved over. Like,
maybe
how cool
like
is
the
that?
people that I met, people I've talked to, things that I've happened, this talking about it right now, like none of this would have happened without that amazing flat tire.
Right. And there's some of you listening to this podcast that are like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I needed to hear.
Yeah.
And what maybe Ambry and I didn't consider in that moment, even though we were changing, is the fact that you needed to hear this.
Yeah.
And this is going to
could be true.
Go home and change
and as we're
your life.
Talking here about it and like, and really realizing the insane like changes we've made in our mindset over the last year, like in a sense, it was a reward.
Yes.
To see, like to literally see.
A reward not to fight.
But a reward to see like, holy crap, like we can do it. Like we can take a situation like that and not let it like ruin our day, make each other angry, like, you know, say things we would regret, like to see and realize that control over our own like emotions and words, like, excuse me, like that's amazing. Like I'm grateful for that opportunity to see that, because that's huge. I mean, I'm proud of us. I'm proud of that. And
I'm going to go here just a little bit. I hope this is okay. I know we said that we were
I hope it's okay. What are you going to say?
But what I'm going to say is this. If you're too busy living in the past and being frustrated, how are you supposed to better your relationship? How is like your love life as far as relationship? How does that grow?
Right.
If you're too busy,
especially because whatever it is that you are feeling is off or you're frustrated with, it's something to do with the past.
I'm sorry, but like, there's no way.
You're not sorry.
Well, there's no way you're angry and then going to bed going, oh, hey, honey, do you want to, like, let's hang out?
Do you want to?
Do you want to? No, you're not going to bed if you're angry or
if you
she's
are,
angry.
That's just messed up.
Well, but that's the thing is you're conceited and not really focusing. But like the fact is if you go to bed angry, you limit your chances, which makes you more angry because you're a human being and you have emotions and you have feelings that, that you need to release at some point. And that's where it's so interesting is that if you're caught up in the past and you're getting frustrated and allowing that to take your day, well, now all of a sudden you're complaining and saying, well, my wife doesn't give me the affection that I deserve, or my husband doesn't give me the love that I need, when ultimately it's because you're angry all the time because you're living in the past and you're not changing. So consider that for a moment, that maybe, just maybe, because you're emotionally charged, the reason why you're not getting the other things in your life is because you're always emotionally charged in an environment that you could change. And instead of getting mad, you could just look at it as feedback, laugh about it, forgive, understand the situation, ask yourself, what can you learn from this? Change, and you may be surprised that that your love life is rejuvenated. Your relationship with your spouse is amazing. And
that energy is
newlywed
contagious.
Thing again, right?
Yeah. Like
yes.
that, like your drive and your motivation, like I'd be very surprised if your spouse wasn't over there. Like if they really want to, better a relationship, if they have that intention as well, like they're going to be over there going, oh, like they'll notice. And even if it's not verbally acknowledged, you'll see changes reciprocated.
Absolutely.
And you'll see, that positive energy reciprocated.
Mm-hmm.
And
totally.
Like that,
I just had to share that. Those like impromptu, like,
like
you know what? I'm going to add this here because I got a lot of that feedback. Oh, I'm not getting the affection I feel like I deserve. And it's like, well, it's probably because you consistently live in the past and don't allow new affection to come in your life.
Yeah. And oftentimes it does have to do with our own internal like models and programs and what we even believe we deserve.
Right.
So
interesting.
So let's go back. We started the episode talking about, like it's the new year. We've made goals and intentions, and you might find you receive feedback along the way. Could be from yourself, could be from those around you that you love,
your
or
body.
People you work with, literally your body.
Your body's like, heck no, I'm not lifting another weight.
You're not eating that cake right there? Like, why? Why are we always eat that cake?
We always eat that
cake. So whatever the feedback is, like our goal here was just kind of open up a topic, and this might be something we, open back up and readdress in the coming weeks. But what do you, like, how do you go beyond that feedback? What do you do to push through it? And I think do you want to help me summarize some of the things just to kind of like bring everything back? Because number one
thing I would say, if your spouse is giving you feedback on a dream, something like, like on a dream or a new goal, right? Okay. The one thing that I would challenge you is ask yourself when the last time you actually successfully did something you said you were going to do. And if you can't remember, then you have to be patient with your wife for giving you feedback, or your husband. And start
realizing the things that like maybe even in your mind, little things that you keep your promises to yourself. Like if you're getting up tomorrow morning at 5 a.m., get up tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. Like it's so easy to just push the snooze button, right? But that right there is like telling yourself and your spouse and whoever in your environment that like you don't really care. Like you don't really care about keeping the word that you made to yourself.
Right.
So
I mean, we fell into that where there'd be mornings you didn't get up, go to the gym. So the next morning I'd get up and go to the gym, and then you'd be frustrated, or vice versa.
What the heck?
Like, wait, this is my gym time.
Things will happen, right? Sure. Maybe like there's a day your body actually needs that extra sleep. Like I'm not saying like drive yourself into the ground, but like create a schedule, go to bed at a time that makes sense for you in order to get up at that time that you would like to get up. Make it like healthy, make it work. Like don't go to bed at 2 a.m. and then want to get up at 4. Like that may not be the right thing to do, but create a good way to do it. But like keep the promise to yourself.
Yes.
And that is going to translate and ripple into other areas of your life.
Right.
And you're going to convince
will come.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're convincing yourself like, oh, I can and I will do what I say I'm going to do and what I, intend to do. So
absolutely.
So there's one.
So I'd say that. And then number 2, know what it is you want.
Yeah.
Right. Because how many times do you start off going, oh, I think I want this. And so you try it, you dabble, you get the feedback.
But you don't really know why you want it or what the reward is.
Right. So then you get lost in the effort. The effort it takes kills your motivation and drive instead of the outcome.
Or not even the effort, but the feedback, right?
The feedback,
Once again, that slice of cake. I'm just going back there because I think it's funny.
We can all,
but like, if you literally, anytime you're offered cake, you say yes.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, that time when you're offered it, you say no.
Yeah.
Your body will literally kind of be like, well, this feels weird. Like, your mind may like.
It happened to me today at the ice cream store. Oh, Jesse, you're not going to get in? You always get ice cream. Well, it's like, yeah, granted, Dad, we haven't seen each other for about 3 years. And the Jesse that you knew that always got ice cream is 3 years old.
Heck, the Jesse I knew 3 months ago is like
the Jesse now
expired.
The Jesse now politely declines the ice cream and reiterates the fact that it has nothing to do with you, and I don't like. It's not that I don't want to be with you. I do.
Yeah.
It's just I don't like ice cream right now. Like it's
it's
not
okay.
in line with my goal.
Like
right.
if one of us does or does not get ice cream and the other does or does not, like that's okay. Like,
but it's that respect.
We don't all have to do the same thing to respect and love and to connect with equal. Each other.
Sure.
And to enjoy a great experience with each other.
Yeah.
And so don't feel like, and anyways, that's a whole nother
that's next
that's another
episode.
topic.
Yeah. But that's the thing though, like you said, is you just don't
know what you want.
You know what you want. And if you know what you want, it is so much easier for you to not get lost in the feedback.
Right. So when you look at that slice of cake and it feels a little weird, you're going like, no, I know what declining this slice of cake is doing for me. And I know the reason why and the reward. So like, nope, I'm good.
Well, and then I'll
feedback
say
and all.
The last thing is be consistent with it, right? Because consistency allows your family and the individuals around you to create their own flow around what you want, right? My own flow of, okay, I'm going to eat healthy. Great. That doesn't mean you have to eat healthy. You do.
Or it looks different, maybe.
Doesn't mean our kids have to eat, like
doesn't mean we can't take our kids out for ice cream. Like, we just don't have to get any if we don't want to. Like,
right. But allow it to be consistent. And as it's consistent, everyone around you starts to adapt a little bit more. Yeah. And there may be some that feel uncomfortable, but that's okay. That's the environment you're changing. You're becoming someone that you want to become. And so what is it? When one of the lyrics is like, when people say you change, I just tell them I hope so, right?
Oh,
when people are telling you, oh man, you've changed, that's a compliment. But in their mind, it's feedback. Like, oh man, you've changed. Well, that's awesome. Like, you should be like, heck yeah. Like, you recognize
what song is that? It's
EGOT by Connor Price.
Yes, Connor Price. I was going to say Colin, but Connor.
Yeah, but the fact is
Connor
like...
Price. His lyrics are fire.
They hit hard. Yeah, they do. But like, same thing. Like, even introducing that song to you, you're like, who is this? Like, wait, what? Like, it was a little bit foreign. Like, is he going to swear? Is he going to not? Like,
this sounds like it's going to be like, a weird song.
Inappropriate, right? But then
but
now it's like, oh no, this is actually really good, right? There's always going to be feedback to the new environment.
And we're all living different models of the world with different reactions to...
But stay consistent with it. Allow yourself, give yourself permission to stay consistent, because you actually might find a diamond in this new feedback. There might be something that becomes a new part of you, a part of you that helps you change, that helps you become that next person. But if you go one time, feel uncomfortable because of the feedback, you feel misplaced, you feel like this isn't the right thing for you, it's because you're not consistent. It's because there's a ton of new information that's coming to your front of your conscious mind, and it's overriding your subconscious reactions, and therefore you feel super uncomfortable. And that's just the most beautiful thing about your brain. Yeah. Like, your brain's designed. What is it? What do they say in this first episode? The first part of your mind is to think about it. The next part of your brain is to feel it. And then the third part is to store it subconsciously so it becomes natural to you. Right? And so when you have natural feelings, but then you bring it back to the front of your brain, like, it's going to present feedback. It's going to present a little bit of uncomfortableness. But if it's an old negative program that's no longer serving you.
Well, but those parts of your brains are communicating and going like, okay, wait, this is how we're wired to act in this situation.
Right.
Or to respond to this kind of, environment, whatever. Like, this is what we do. And then you're challenging it and the other parts are going, okay, wait, are we going to keep pushing back, or are we going to change this?
Yes.
And...
it's beautiful.
It is. It's incredible.
Amazing. Because you could literally change.
Gosh.
You could literally change your personal reality by changing your individual self.
The composition of our bodies and minds and how interconnected and intuitive they are is beyond my comprehension. As much as I do understand, it is incredible. It is godly. It is just absolutely supreme. I love it.
But I would have never thought that a meditation, that one time telling you, Ambry, I'm going to go do a meditation, getting the little bit of feedback, had I not stayed consistent with it, I would have never delve into the brain as much as I have and learned so much and had so much more gratitude for me, right? And understanding me. I would have never understand this.
I think
this
also like
conversation
finding confidence and conviction in what it is that you do want and be authentic and be real about it. Like you don't need to fake it or, make someone believe it's
because of other people.
It's a different intention because you think that's what they would want. Like, I would like to talk about that on another episode because that's something I've been working on a lot this year is it's the throat chakra, right? Like
throat chakra.
And so anyways, that's for another day. But man, we really suck at trying to do an episode less than 45.
We don't suck. We're changing. It's part of our environment, right? We subconsciously have done enough of these that it's just like, hey,
we literally
45 minute
without trying.
episodes.
It's always like the same.
Right.
Yeah.
And now like we have to become more aware and bring it back to the front of the mind. It's such an interesting thing. I love it. Even this episode, you guys you're seeing the feedback from it, but we really, really appreciate your feedback.
Happy New Year, everybody. Yes. Hope you guys had great celebrations the last weekend.
Don't quit on your goals. Stay consistent and committed to the outcome.
There's no quitting. There's only persisting.
Exactly. You guys are beautiful people. Like we appreciate you listening. And if we struck an emotional chord on this episode, man, share it with your spouse. Like how cool would that be? You go home and you say, hey, spouse, listen to this. And you both go, oh my gosh, we've been doing this different, like the wrong way.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as the wrong way, but we've been doing it a way that's
not serving our purpose or what we want. Like it's not necessarily right or wrong. It's like, is it serving you?
Right.
Anyways.
And then all of a sudden you listen and the next argument you have, maybe you decide and remember this episode and maybe you resolve it faster with less emotion. And then maybe you find yourself just passionately hugging each other. So happy. That might happen.
Maybe something else will happen.
Wow, chicka, wow, wow.
You would want that, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for listening. And look forward to talking to you. Our schedule did change, I guess, real quick. Yes. We are now releasing these episodes on Monday.
Yeah.
Because middle of the week, I mean,
it's a good thing.
We want you to have full energy. And then,
works better for everyone.
Absolutely. Tune into it, listen, internalize it. And then next Monday, boom, be right back, ready to go. You guys are beautiful people. We appreciate you listening, and we hope you have a wonderful day.